He was one of three brothers who all made the big leagues in baseball. A career .241 hitter, he enjoyed success on the diamond with the Washington Senators, Milwaukee Brewers, and Chicago White Sox. While he may have been in a little bit of a shadow of his younger brother Dick, a seven-time All-Star, it was his career after baseball that brought much success as well. The first black trainer to saddle a horse in the Kentucky Derby in 78 years, and being the only one since that 1989 classic, ThoroFan continues its Black History Month series by looking at the life of Hank Allen. Born in Wampum, PA, horses were part of Hank's life from the very start, with his father, Coy, owning a few working horses and making Hank and his brothers care for them to teach them the importance of responsibility. It would be the baseball diamond, not the racetrack, though, that served as Hank's first career. All of the Allen boys were very talented athletes in a multitude of sports. Hank's older brother, Coy Jr., made a name for himself playing in the Negro leagues of the time, as it was just a little too early to break into the big leagues for black players. After a successful high school baseball and basketball run, Hank was signed to a pro contract with the Philadelphia Phillies, but never made it out of their farm system and soon had his contract sold to the Washington Senators, where he finally got his shot in the big leagues. He was a solid ball player in the big leagues, having stints with the Senators, Milwaukee Brewers, and Chicago White Sox. It was his younger brother, Dick, that really shined on the diamond, though, earning many accolades and awards during his career. The two brothers did play together briefly with the Chicago White Sox towards the end of Hank's career. While it was Dick who always got the attention on the diamond, Hank would go on after baseball to become very well known as a top trainer in the thoroughbred world. In fact, it was Dick who brought him back into the horse world after Hank retired from baseball in 1973. Dick shared a passion for owning horses from the time he was a kid, and he kept trying to get Hank to come on board with a few of them. Hank resisted during his playing days, but after retiring agreed to come out to Chicago and Arlington Park to see his brother's horses and perhaps get more involved in the sport. He had wanted to stay involved in baseball in a management position of some kind, but at that time blacks were just not hired for those positions, so he had no avenues to advance. While at Arlington, he got bit by the racing bug and looked to see how he could help out more at the barn and eventually become a trainer. The oldest trainer in America at the time, Nate Cantrell, took a liking to Hank and took him under his wing, teaching Hank all that he knew about training over the decades and what was really important when it came to training racehorses. Soaking in all this knowledge and eventually getting his trainer's license, Hank moved back to Maryland and set up his stable at the Bowie Training Center. The family always was part of his racing stable, with Dick owning some of the horses Hank trained, and brother Ron, who has his own baseball distinction of being the only major league player to have a home run be his only hit ever recorded, as his barn's foreman. I also found a few statements saying Dick was the first jockey agent for none other than John Velasquez, but I can't 100% verify it, so clearly the Allens had success at many levels in the racing game. A fairly successful trainer on the Maryland and Mid-Atlantic circuit, Hank finally got a really good one in 1988 in the form of a roan colt named Northern Wolf. After a losing effort on grass in his debut, something Allen didn't really want to run him in, but the owners preferred it, he went out and broke his maiden in the Rollicking Stakes at Pimlico. Battling his way through some tough graded stakes at the end of his 2-year-old year, the Derby was the farthest thing from Allen's mind when he started his 3-year-old campaign. However, after Northern Wolf won the 1 1/8 Deputed Testimony Stakes at Pimlico very impressively and in quite a quick time, his owners felt it was worth taking a shot in the Derby. In doing so, Allen became the first black trainer to have a horse run in the Derby since Raleigh Colston in 1911. While understanding the significance of what he had accomplished, Allen did not let it overtake his thinking or preparations for the big race, as he truly felt his horse had a shot to win, and that you had to be in the gate for a shot to win. When asked about that whole experience from dealing with reporters' questions about being the first black trainer in decades to run a horse, one who many in the media gave no chance to, and in fact was placed in what was known at that time as the Mutual Field, and the Derby Day walkover with the horses to saddle Northern Wolf, he had this to say.
But when I first got there to Churchill Downs, that when I got out of my car and I parked my car, suddenly I was surrounded with probably 80, 85 riders. And the questions were asked, what put you up to this? Why did you decide to come here? So there were all kinds of things that were asked at the time, but those are the things that you endure, and you just go on and tend to your own business. It's an unforgettable experience. That morning you come to the barn that morning. We came to the barn probably about 5:30 that morning. It's no other day like it. I equivalent it to the World Series. People are gathered around, the reporters and everybody are asking last-minute questions about your riders. Is everything okay, your horse and things all right? But the experience that you have just before when it's time to go over, there's a line of people probably about 10 deep on each side, from the barn all the way to the time you walk on the racetrack on both sides, and that's like an honor that you're walking through to get to it, and they honor all the trainers and the horses that are going to the track that day. That's an experience that I'll never forget. And then the moment that you set foot on the racetrack, the crowd just goes wild when they see those Derby horses come over. I've never had an experience like that before. I'll always remember that experience while we were there on Derby Day that day.
Northern Wolf outran his odds and the expectations of many that rainy afternoon at Churchill Downs, finishing a very respectable 6th after getting a slight bump in the stretch from the eventual winner, Sunday Silence. It convinced Allen and his owners to try the big boys again in the Preakness Stakes, a race Allen felt Northern Wolf had earned the right to be in based on his performance in Kentucky a few weeks earlier. This time things would not go as planned, though, and Northern Wolf tired badly to finish last after being part of the pace, a performance that had Allen convinced he had injured himself somehow or bled during the race. Northern Wolf would not race again in his 3-year-old year, and was bought back for a 4-year-old campaign that focused mainly on sprint distances. Using the knowledge gained from years of training and the tutelage of Nate Cantrell, Allen guided Northern Wolf through a 1990 season that culminated with a track record performance in the Duck Dance Handicap at Laurel and another track record performance in the inaugural running of the Frank DeFrancis Memorial Dash, beating some of the top sprinters in the country, including the mare Safely Kept, who would go on to win the Breeders' Cup Sprint that year. Northern Wolf suffered a slight injury training for the Breeders' Cup and was then retired. He was not the best horse that Allen felt he had ever trained, but he was certainly the one that brought him the most notoriety. Mysterious migraines that years later were determined to be caused by a food allergy caused Allen to have to leave the training game, turning back to his baseball roots and getting a scouting job with a few teams, including the Houston Astros, that got him that World Series ring he always wanted. He recently retired from the scouting job and still has a passion for the horses, and toys with the idea of being involved in some way either as a breeder or an owner. For in his words, it's like they say, once you step in it, it's hard to get out. A mostly quiet, well-liked, and very astute horseman, Hank Allen never really dwelled on or played up what he had accomplished as a black trainer in the later half of the 20th century. His focus was always on the horses, and perhaps summed up the whole issue of race and racing with this quote, "The horses don't know I'm black. They will run as fast for me as for anybody." Words perhaps we all should remember when it comes to race and horse racing.